This is huge news, and I want every single one of you watching this to spread the word to everyone you know that Broken Arrow is back on Steam. Well, hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and no, you didn't miss out on any sort of crazy DMCA strike like in the past, or that it's been released or anything like that. No, Broken Arrow had a demo back in February during the Steam Next event, and now it's back, baby. And I'll tell you how to download it just as soon as we finish the word from our sponsor. World of Warships Legends. Play anytime, anywhere. Easy and sleek gameplay where matches are up to 15 minutes, which is easy to learn and easy to master, but with good competition. Cross-platform, so games from PlayStation and Xbox can continue on mobile or otherwise. Massive games with massive ships up to 9 nations, which are historically detailed, and fancy customization for your very own fleet with new content and ships in every update. Highly detailed weather, which changes the course of battle and changes how you approach your battle tactics and makes you feel a part of the battle. Customization of ships, commanders, overlays, and extra patches which do not affect the outcome of the battle in any way, but simply allows you to bring your own spice to the fight. So, there you have it. World of Warships Legends. On mobile, on PlayStation, and Xbox. The battle continues, wherever you are or wherever you're going. Thrilling gameplay with 3 types of ships, including destroyers, battleships, and cruisers. World of Warships Legends. World of Warships Legends is currently available on mobile in Canada and the Philippines, with plans to go worldwide soon. Well, if you've been anywhere near an EMP blast over the last few months, Broken Arrow is one of the most highly anticipated modern RTS games of all time, I must say, combining elements of what we've all loved from World in Conflict and also elements of Wargame Red Dragon, massive tank battles, but also that heavy urban combat with contested areas in really just built up verticality of towering skyscrapers and residential buildings that we all have wanted to see in games like Wargame, but also like another modern World in Conflict with elements of regiments mixed in. This game is gonna be hot, I'm telling you. And really, it's great to see that RTS games are continuously being developed upon and improved upon from the past, and taking things that were great that worked before and now bringing them here. Well, now again on Steam, you can go to Steam right now and just type in Broken Arrow and add it to your wish list, and also download the demo again. If you've already previously downloaded this, a few things have changed, very minor, either that have changed or I just didn't see in my first couple of playthroughs. It's the same old, hey, the US Marines are pushing forward and trying to capture one side of a canal and then trying to push the other side to capture a star force to stop Star Fort, almost said Star Wars, to capture this canal to stop the Soviet Navy, the Russian Navy, you know, just basic, who knows nowadays with all the equipment we've seen. But anyway, yeah, it's the same old mission of using the Marines to capture a major metropolitan area to deny the enemy of basically access to the sea. And it's really, really cool. And I've seen some glitches in this time around that I hadn't seen previously, and I'm really surprised to have actually seen them. Apparently the demo is a smaller size now, and there's been some serious crash fixes that a lot of people were reporting during the first demo. It was quite upsetting, of course, to want to play this and to experience some problems. So it seems like the developers are back again to build up that hype, and also to kind of make up for if there was any sort of issue during the demo itself for a lot of people. Well, in my playthrough just moments ago, earlier today, I've experienced a few things that were a little concerning for the main overall campaign, but I'm hoping that will be buffed out for the full release of the game, or at least maybe perhaps an early access release. Again, I'm not sure where we are at this point, and you know, things go back and forth and release dates get pushed forward. Best case scenario, I hope we get a very solid full game that definitely features a Russian and an American campaign that features all the other factions within them, like, for example, Airborne and Marines and Armored and etc. And I really want this to be a game that lives up to the hype. I know I'm hyping this a lot. This game has been hyped by many people. It's very promising looking, and we've all gotten our hands on this now, and it lives up to a lot of that. And minus a few things polish-wise, when I was playing the demo, I did experience a very weird section where later in the demo, when you capture the other side of the canal and capture the Star Fort, American reinforcements come in, and before they do, it is up to you to clear the skies of Russian aircraft, and, you know, Su-25s and MiG-31s and other aircraft come around, and I experienced a bug where I tried to call a few of my F-18s back to the carrier in which they were launched from, and infinitely they were basically just recalled, and I had endless amounts of money, but I wasn't able to call anything in. Now, this demo doesn't allow you to save, so that's really frustrating when you're about maybe 40 minutes into a mission and you're not able to save, and that probably was a lot of people's frustrations too, when crashes would come in mid-mission and you weren't able to restart. Well, you had to restart. You couldn't restart from your previous save or an autosave or a mission objective completed. You had to go all the way back to the beginning. Hard to complain about that because this demo is so damn fun to play, and you know, aside from not being able to really experience the helicopters and the aircraft to their fullest yet, we at least get a taste with some things like the Viper Cobras and also F-18s and I think F-15s as well that are available to call in, as well as some cruise missiles from off-map ships, or not off-map, but they're on-map, but it's, you know, of course not on land, which is phenomenal. It really brings me back to the World in Conflict days of having the Missouri Pound Pine Valley and ask all your troops to basically stay out of impact zones as the artillery is coming in. In this case, calling in the cruise missiles is phenomenal. Again, it's a fantastic demo, and I just want everybody who hasn't been able to have a chance to play this to play it. If you've gotten a new PC in the last couple months, or if you were on vacation or deployed or just not able to give this one a try, like I mentioned, if an EMP blast went off and you weren't able to give this one a shot and don't even know it exists, damn, this is going to be good. Again, games like Warno and Regiments and Steel Division, and even the new Call of the Company of Heroes, which I feel like is kind of a... It really is a spiritual successor to the previous Company of Hero games, where it really looks and feels like the older ones. I don't know what people were expecting with that one. I think they wanted like ground-shaking graphics or whatnot. But honestly, when we play a game that's an RTS game, we want explosions, we want fire, we want debris, and this game certainly has that. And, you know, again, we've been going forward with greater and greater RTS games, and I feel like for RTS games, we're hitting milestones where we're starting to really see games that redefine the genre. I know it's cliche, but honestly, when it came to the base building in Company of Heroes, I think that was a vast improvement of what we would see previously from games like the Red Alert series and the Command & Conquer series. And then when we saw, you know, base building in StarCraft and some light base building in, like I mentioned, Company of Heroes, it was a lot more light base building. And then games like World in Conflict and other games, you know, such as their previous title before World in Conflict, which I think was called I forget, something Command or whatever it was. There was a game before that, and even with the War Game coming around, removing base building. So when War Game European Escalation came around in World in Conflict, you'd be calling in units, you know, off map, or in World in Conflict's case, you would be calling in aircraft to drop vehicles and infantry. And it was phenomenal to see the battle go from, you know, a beautiful city that you could have made in a city building game to be absolutely destroyed. In the case of World in Conflict, you could also tactically nuke 3 times in a row. Yeah, you could pool all your points together and one player could drop 3 tactical nukes, and then you could bomb the hell out of everything with carpet bombing. Now, this game seems to allow you to do that with tactical nukes and also to call in paratroopers, but they're actual, like, on-map assets that can be shot down. Later in this mission, by the way, Russian paratroopers drop from what seems to be like 6 to 8, maybe even 10 aircraft, and they drop in with man pads, which I hadn't seen previously. And in my playthrough, I saw that Cobras were getting shot down left and right. And the first few times that I played this, I think it was just the infantry, and they absolutely get pummeled, and aircraft plummet to the ground, because if you have Stingers nearby, you could shoot down a few of those transports as well. So they certainly are vulnerable like any other aircraft. They're certainly capable of taking a bit of damage and possibly evading, but it's really cool that the battle will play out where there's not really anything that's untouchable in the game. You know, of course, if a the map, well, not off the map, but if a large destroyer such as the Arleigh Burke in this mission is hammering your position with a cruise missile, it could be entirely possible to call in anti-ship missile launching technology or assets that could destroy that ship, and everything's, you know, touchable. There's nothing that, like how it is in Wargame, everything has to be brought into the map, and thus everything's vulnerable. There are assets that, you know, might not be able to be touched. For example, being able to bring in endless amounts of supply, like that doesn't seem to be something that can be stopped. In other words, if the enemy is bringing their helicopters back to some carrier that's off map, they're deploying aircraft from that, so that can't be touched. Like the large aircraft carrier that's off the map can't necessarily be sunk. that's launching like the F-18s and the additional Marines and things like that, and or bringing in supply with the Super Stallions. Stuff like that necessarily can't be stopped. But other than that, it's a really great mix of everything that I've loved. And I continue to praise it. I continue to say that. And I hope everybody gives this demo a shot, because it really has some very unfair and challenging moments that I think should be reported for feedback. But also the gameplay and like the vehicle damage and everything is very, very solid. Whenever enemy units are destroyed, whenever there's a conflict where 13 Marines are taking on 14 Russian position, 7 in one building, 7 in the other, it really does feel like a great firefight. And playing this many different ways has really opened the door to different tactics that could be possible in the game. I've made purposeful mistakes to see how the AI would react to that, how the Marines would react to that, things like what happens if you use smoke. When it comes to mortar carriers that carry mortars, you can fire in smoke rounds that would block the enemy's line of sight. And so if you use that, how effective is that? Are real military tactics applicable here? And if so, how good are they? Is it better to just rush in like 8 squads of Marines and just overwhelm the enemy? And, though they could be easily killed, it's much more effective in terms of like just rushing and destroying and like shooting everything. And clearing buildings out that way, or is it good to use combined arms? And it seems like, the more realistic tactics would win here. Combining the elements of Marines with an LAV, with also smoke cover and maybe chopper support, all work well, and it is very fun. Although I will say, in this mission, it's concerning for certain things, not only like that cutscene that I mentioned before, where the cutscene will play an F-18s kind of are scripted to, I think they're scripted to be shot down, so that way you can rescue the pilots and then bring them back to the carrier for additional points. At least there's a possibility of that teaches you that that's a thing in the game, like how it was back in the days of Command & Conquer Generals, where you could actually capture some of your, or rescue some of your pilots and bring them into vehicles and get the veterancy for it. This game kind of has that same component too, where there's like, hey, if somebody gets shot down, there is a bonus to rescuing them. There is a pilot in there, and there could be, behind enemy lines operations to rescue them for additional points, which could turn the tide of battle. But other than that, the second objective of this game, this mission, the first objective being to clear the starting position of enemy anti-aircraft launchers, so that way helicopters and things can be brought in. The second phase, which you're seeing now, is to capture the Star Fort and destroy enemy guns that could destroy aircraft and ships. And then the third part of the mission is to then start to secure some apartment buildings across the peninsula that will then stop the enemy counterattack. And then the final objective is to finally hold against that. Now, there's a few things that are interesting about this mission. Like, for example, you don't have to take the Star Fort right away, and you can spend a lot of your time clearing out enemy positions in an endless amount of time. Now, the the friendly commander, your commander, continuously tells you to capture that position and to get up there and get it done. But if you do that, you are wasting valuable time that you could use endlessly to clear enemy positions and then get a much better foothold when it comes time to clear out all these apartment buildings. It allows you to destroy things that are very powerful against your infantry, such as, I think it's BDMs or whatever it is. There's the paradropped. It's basically like a BMP that's dropped from an aircraft, and then, of course, it's used with paratroopers. It's got like a 20, 25 millimeter, 30 millimeter cannon on it, whatever. There's different variants that are anti-aircraft, and there's variants that have, like anti-aircraft missiles on them, and also like 30 millimeter cannons and whatnot for anti-aircraft. So they can all be used against your troops. And so to clear that out, like, for example, the mall that's north here of the Star Fort, it's great to capture those positions ahead of time and to clear out those vehicles. However, even now, even though there may have been some updates to this demo, some changes that I've noticed, or at least some things that I didn't see the first time, there seems to still be problems with infantry getting into larger buildings. I continuously have trouble capturing large areas of interest, such as a mall, a building that's kind of segregated into 4 different quadrants, northeast, southwest. That's a huge structure. 2 of them are like a parking garage, and 2 of them are like the mall section. And so if you were going to capture a large mall like that, it's a massively interconnected structure. And so to go into the parking garage and clear that out and then push into the mall, it seems like you have to call the troops out of the building and then push up the street and then go into the building again. And of course, once you leave cover, it's a death trap because then you're immediately being shot at by the troops that are in that other building that's connected, and then also other infantry that are nearby in other buildings. Now, this game does have a wonderful feature of allowing you to breach buildings. In other words, there's 7 enemy soldiers in a building. You do have the capability of pushing into that building and basically going door to door to clean them out. And you also have the ability to artillery, or as you saw, bomb enemy positions. I think there's a F-18 question mark. No, I think it's a Harrier that has bombs. And you're able to call in those assets on enemy positions, and so it seems like the best way to clear out an enemy-held structure is with autocannons. So getting close with LAVs and then clearing it out of enemy infantry is good, but then again, moving your infantry between those quadrants can be quite difficult. And with a large building like the mall that can contain 64 troops, you could get like a couple of squads of Marines in there, and then also some ATGMs, the Dragon ATGM, which makes it just absolutely a vital point of interest to hold, to not only hold the Star Fort, but to also deny the enemy reinforcements from pushing in. Now, once you get the landing force, then there's a secret timer, and you don't really know how much time you have to capture the enemy town. At a certain point, boy, even if you're the best player in the world, I think you just be maybe working on the final objective. Your commanding officer will tell you basically GG, it's over, and throw his hands up, and that the Marines at the fort are just, there's nothing you can do. The enemy's going to break through and it's over. But then you get like seemingly another 15 to 20 minutes to then try to capture the remaining assets, and then there's a mission fail. So it is possible to fail the mission after capturing the Star Fort for the first time, and when the Marines are out of your control. Now, once you capture that Star Fort, those forces are kind of out of your hands, and you're tasked with capturing other positions, but all the troops that you may have placed in positions around the Star Fort are gone, and then it's just like 4 squads that are basically pinned down at the fort, and it's your job to rescue them by cutting off the enemy and then defending them while they finish off the enemy attackers that are still trying to push their position. So, you know, there's some really concerning parts of how the scripting is done in the missions, and hopefully players don't experience that themselves when they make their own missions. This game will have the ability to create your own missions in maps made by the devs, but if we get a full map tool, and if we get the ability to make our own missions like this, this could be amazing. Recreating campaign missions from Call of Duty, you know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare with 2 and 3 having like New York and Washington, D.C. attacked, and to fulfill those missions as if you were playing it in a real-time strategy game rather than just being the grunts on the ground would be amazing. Imagine defending Burger Town, but in an RTS. I think the possibilities here are endless. The flaws, I think, are workable and can be fixed, and the feedback only will help to improve that. But the solid start of just a free single-player demo on Steam is mind-boggling. I don't think I've seen a demo better than this on Steam except for Manor Lords, which is another kind of real-time strategy medieval warfare game coming soon, where you can build your own cities, and then you can have those troops live in your city, and of course all the things need to be supplied to them. You can make your own weapons and then go out and capture other regions, and that's going to be like an interconnected map that's just on another level. But in terms of RTS games that we haven't seen in a while, from what seems to be kind of an indie developer out of nowhere, Slytherin, the publisher working on this, has been really supporting some incredible looking and very exciting RTS games over the last couple of years that are seemingly coming soon. They are the ones who made the Starship Troopers real-time strategy game recently. They're also working on a Terminator game. Yeah, there's a game called, I think, Terminator Dark Fate, which deals with the dark future of mankind fighting against all the robots and Skynet and whatnot. And so, and they're also working on a Stargate. Sorry, Stargate. I think it's called Timekeepers game, and it's a real-time like stealth tactical game. If you're a big fan of like Desperados 3 or, you know, the Desperado games, or another one like Commandos, for example, it's that type of game. And so I think this publisher is doing a great job of picking developers that are doing things that are proven to work, but doing vastly new things with them that are just like getting everybody excited. I mean, just playing this demo again was like being on a roller coaster where I'm just waiting to get to the top of it. And we do get to go down a couple of the drops in this roller coaster, which is the demo, but then it's over and it's back to the station. And you feel like a lot is missing. And again, you can't judge a demo, and everybody's always asking me, what do I think of the game? Is the game worth it? Do you think it'll be good? What will the price be? All those pieces of information, of course, are found on their Steam store page. So again, once you download the demo, just add it to your wish list and make sure you monitor this and keep an eye on things like the, if you're interested in PvP, see how that plays out. If you're interested in mod support and if you're interested in custom-made missions, keep an eye on that as well. And yeah, I think at best this game is going to, or at worst, will be a positive reviewed game at the start. It'll have issues, and I'm sure it'll have a lot of things that are like, the hell are they thinking? But after a while, I think we'll get a great game that the developers have shown that they're willing to listen and be transparent about a lot of the stuff about what they're developing. But I hope we will find ourselves in another demo before it's released, and I hope it'll be a different mission, perhaps from the perspective of the Russians, and or maybe even another faction other than the U.S. Marines if we get the American forces again. Perhaps maybe a skirmish mission or something that's a little bit more like, hey, here's the problem, and choose whichever vehicles or units you want to try to solve it. This current mission is a little bit more scripted, and so it makes me believe that it's one of the earlier missions, but not one of the first missions. But it would be great if there was a scenario where you get to land troops wherever you want, and the objective is, hey, this enemy town is occupied by, obviously, the enemy, and it's up to you to clear them out and try to basically recapture it. And I think that's going to be the most solid way to experience this game, is by going through the single-player missions, going through the multiplayer, and going through any sort of other single-player / co-op skirmishes or missions that they might have. And I'm talking about in the future as well. Like, I know there's a lot of things on paper and there's a roadmap, but I would really love to see a lot of those opportunities to play with a friend or against a friend too, where they kind of play, play a scenario where, they're wanting to fall back or I'm wanting to fall back to just try to create some sort of a very unique scenario. And that's what you get in a lot of games like, for example, Arma, with a lot of the role play going on in that, or even in games like Hell Let Loose, a lot of people playing roles and trusting commanders and doing things that way. And with this game also having roles that's reminiscent of World in Conflict. If you remember World in Conflict, by the way, hats off to you, because that game, by the way, we have a whole new playthrough on the channel of that one, of the campaign again. And that game in its single-player in the single-player campaign and also in its multiplayer, you're completely reliant on the others around you for assets that you do not have control of, but they're also very reliant on you. And so, when you're under fire by artillery, like you see right here under the beach landing with rocket artillery firing off, it might be on a teammate to then find that artillery and eliminate it to then save you infantry losses. And in one of the missions in World in Conflict, with defending the prison camp there with Melashenko, he's the one in charge of all the tanks and some of the infantry, and you're the one in charge of spotting enemy artillery and targeting them with your own artillery. And so that's a really cool thing that I hope to see, is that it's not about making the perfect deck sometimes or the most well-balanced and most affordable spreadsheet, but really just trying to get assets that might be used and then kind of more relying on tactics. And so I hope to see in the campaign that we also get some ability to choose and also maybe be able to play some things co-op as well. That would be a lot of fun. In terms of scenarios and things that have a great vast amount of replayability. Now, when we talk about games like World in Conflict, I'm playing it again for the third time on the channel, probably my 7th playthrough of that game in my life, which is amazing. I have the collector's edition of that game with the damn piece of the Berlin Wall. It's incredible. But also games like Wargame, European Escalation, Air Land Battle, and Red Dragon also having some very good replayability. I recently played, over the last 3 or 4 years, European Escalation again. I love the handcrafted missions of that game. And Regiments also feels a lot like that too. Air Land Battle, I think, is a little bit more forgettable, as they tried to try out some more dynamic stuff, and they had aircraft for the first time. European Escalation didn't have any aircraft at all, only helicopters. And then Air Land Battle expanded upon that, but Red Dragon hit hard with its ability to create some very believable scenarios, like with the Chinese invasion of Hong Kong before the British handover, I think back in 1997. And then also the Second Korean War and the Soviet invasion of Japan. And those would be scenarios from those games that I would love to see recreated in this game. Although, remember, at the moment, we're only getting the Americans and the Russians, but the possibility, I mean, if the devs just said, nah, we're just going to do these two, it would be insane. You would just be you would be triggered beyond belief, and your life would end right there. I mean, you would just like vanish. Like you'd be like, wow, like all this opportunity, all this polish, and not expanded upon to like the Germans and the French and the Chinese or whatnot. But even games like Squad now are getting support over the years that's bringing in new factions, like the Chinese, for example. And I hope to see more of these games that are RTS games almost feeling like a first-person shooter where you're just kind of commanding things from like a, well, like a drone, basically. And I can't wait to see more first-person shooters almost play like an RTS as well. Games like Hell Let Loose and Squad also allowing you to simply build defenses and bunkers and transport supply around. And games like Foxhole, too, where, again, there's a massive battle going on all the time in Foxhole, but the ones who also win the war are the people building railroads and transporting supplies and bringing things to outposts, and lots of great updates and constant quality of life and community support, giving feedback and wanting more and making improvements and changes. It's great that we're beyond the game comes out and game is finished. In fact, going all the way back to Company of Heroes, when Company of Heroes launched, way back in the day, we didn't get all the other DLCs until much later on a lot of that, and that's some really good content. And come to think of it, when Company of Heroes 2 dropped, that was just simply the Germans and the Soviets. And then later on, the American and the British forces came in, and they got more dynamic campaigns and different stuff that was good. But, you know, there's always a starting point, and it's always never where it ends up being. You know, for example, I hate to give this example, but The Sims, for example, right? 3 billion DLCs for that continuously gives features that should have possibly been day one, or a lot of stuff that should have been there day one. I think there's a big difference with the games that I mentioned versus The Sims, where it's like there are a lot of things that could be in these games that should be in these games that are delivered later that just need to be expanded upon over time. And then there's the hostage situation, which is EA, which explains why we really never got a Generals 2, or they talked about it, but then they realized they weren't going to make enough money. But, you know, it's a great thing to see all these indie devs or smaller teams working on games that are just fueled by pure passion and by their communities and by their love of other games. And they're, again, as I say on this channel, they are games being made by gamers for gamers. And you can really, truly feel that from a massive distance. My impressions of this game makes it feel like, again, we're playing City Skylines 2 before it is released. Like the buildings and the layouts of the city are so believable, and I think they even copy some real map designs, that these games have the possibility to go far well above and beyond what they could just be in terms of a very solid RTS. These could be games that now set the new standard for future RTS games that might take place in modern times. And so hopefully we see a lot more development on this game that becomes much more than what it is now. And so I hope a lot of people have started to download the demo. I hope there's a lot more feedback. The devs do have a very good and active Discord as well, and lots of news and teasers and things coming out, a lot of confirmed things that people don't know is confirmed. So just make it well known that, yes, confirmed in this game is that finally, yes, confirmed, we have the demo again for Broken Arrow. It is confirmed that it is the same demo you may have seen or played before. There does seem to be some changes to it, but it's not necessarily really clear as day what might be changed, but overall it's the same quote-unquote thing. Oh man, I love seeing some of these tactics here with the aircraft coming in for air support. I don't think a lot of these tactics would work in the mission. I feel like a lot of things are RNG, but that also increases the replayability. Now also it's confirmed that you can't save in the demo too, so if you have some problems with crashing or whatnot, hopefully again they fix that. But I hope that the next demo that they bring out for Broken Arrow is more single-player missions, and then eventually before it's released, perhaps they do some sort of a beta weekend or week where they do multiplayer stuff. There's been a lot more frequency of that in games on Steam, like Dark and Darker, where a lot of systems are trying to be tested to take the load for when they actually drop. And if this is going to be a highly anticipated RTS that could get other communities in, like the first-person shooter community, like Arma and Hell Let Loose, and a lot of people who play those games primarily want to play a game that's an RTS, with tactics like, you know, calling down a creeping barrage or a line of smoke, or using suppression and automatic weapons, and using like a mechanized assault, and actually trying those real-life tactics that could be deployed in real life and or in Arma and other realistic games, or even going as far as games like Ready or Not, where of course that's a police game about SWAT, but you clear a room the same way. But if you're going to be clearing a room, you want a certain number of people versus a suspected force of a certain number. So would it be worth it to have them experiment with taking 13 squad of 13 Marines versus a squad of, I don't know, 14 reservists or something like that, and seeing if they would win, and trying that where you flank from different directions. There's a lot of experimentation here, a lot of possibility, and I just wanted to speak more on this and talk about how I was really, again, impressed with the demo. I want to keep playing it, but there are some issues with the demo that I hope don't make it into the full game. Also, seeing the helicopters on screen there, I somehow was able to manage to call out like 2 super stallions full of like way more Marines than they're able to hold. I think they're able to hold 30 troops, and I somehow was able to call out like 6 squads or something like that with 50 of them in each, or something weird where 50 troops were able to fit into a super stallion. So I was able to call out like 100 Marines or something, like 50 each, like in the super stallion. I don't know. It blew me away to just see like me being able to almost get infinite money and be able to call out assets that I didn't have access to. So hopefully that doesn't make problems on release for multiplayer, where people are able to just endlessly spam artillery or something like that. It is going to be very important for everybody's sake that this game hits hard and does well and is polished for the start, so that way we can finally get a good RTS that everyone can kind of get behind, since the previous ones, one that's prolonged. And I hope that that's the case with Company of Heroes, and I hope that that's the case with this game, and I hope that other RTS games like Foxhole, as I mentioned before, and games where you can build defenses continue. And speaking of defenses, you can do that in regiments as well, where you can build anti-tank positions, and I'd love to see that in this game too, where you could possibly build some defenses in a field, which would really give you some great advantage and would be an interesting thing to give to different factions, to give them a little bit maybe less ability to fight on the front line, but then create the front line. Be interesting. I don't know. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about the demo with the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, what you love about the game, what you think should be changed, things that I'd forgotten to include, things that just get the hype train rolling, and stuff that you want to see in the final game as well, and things that I might have missed that that I don't know that might be coming soon. Aircraft that are confirmed, tactics that might be viable, ships that might be able to possibly shoot down airplanes, because man, does that Arleigh Burke suck when it comes to shooting down the other aircraft. It's got to be better. It could be for the mission, but I don't know. Anyway, that's it for me. That's all I wanted to say about the Broken Arrow demo, back on Steam now until March 20th, from the 10th to the 20th. Download now. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you.